All right, let's jump right into a really powerful idea. What if our entire civilization, I mean everything, all its rules, its institutions, its deepest beliefs, was suddenly put on trial? And I'm not talking about a human court. This is a cosmic one, judged by the stars themselves. Well, we're about to witness that very trial. This is the cosmic indictment of an entire civilization. So let's step into the courtroom.
So boom, we're dropped right into the scene. The accused, a civilization called Asphaltica, literally shackled in chains of its own making. Think asphalt and endless paperwork. And its jury? Oh, you know, just the Galactic Council, a massive ring of starlight, ready to pass judgment on everything.
Okay, so here's the court docket for today's trial. We're going to walk through each of these charges one by one, hitting on knowledge, power, and even faith before we get to that final cosmic verdict.
All right, the stage is set. You've got the accused in the dock, a jury of stars is watching, and the trial is officially about to begin. Every single pillar of this society is about to be held accountable.
And the prosecution opens its case. Now, you might think they'd start with the government or the economy, but no. Their first target is a bit surprising. It's the very foundation of this society's future. It's schools. A being known as the Stellar Archivist steps forward to present the very first indictment.
And right here, we see the absolute core of the prosecution's argument. On the one hand, Asphaltica claimed its schools were there to educate, to enlighten. But the cosmic verdict? It reveals a much darker purpose, a system that was really designed just to indoctrinate.
Yeah, the archivist paints a pretty grim picture here. We're talking schools with bells that sound like factory alarms and desks that look like prison cells. The heart of the indictment is this. Curiosity wasn't nurtured. It was punished as a disruption. And wonder? It wasn't celebrated. It was completely suffocated. And then they had the nerve to blame the kids for suffocating.
So, the case against the schools is pretty damning, right? But believe me, the prosecution is just getting started. After tearing down the idea of knowledge, the court turns its attention to power itself, the very pillars holding this entire society together.
So, three major institutions are brought forward to face judgment. First, the legal system, which was supposed to deliver justice. Then, the media, which promised truth. And finally, the corporations, the ones who promised prosperity. First up, the legal system. A being called the Comet Herald steps up, and the verdict is just scathing. Justice wasn't a temple, it was a casino of misery. Think about that. The system didn't solve problems, it literally turned people's pain into profit, burying the poor in paperwork while the rich always found a loophole.
Next on the chopping block, the media. The Pulsar Order comes forward and just lays into it. They claim to be a mirror reflecting reality, right? Nope. The court found it was a funhouse mirror, distorting everything with gossip and fake controversies. And here's the really crucial part. It trained people to crave distraction, not to actually think.
And finally, we have the Nebula Elder, who delivers a truly brutal judgment against Asphalt Khana's whole system of commerce. The Elder says they didn't see innovation, they saw the engineering of addiction and scarcity. I mean, this was a system that sold poison and then turned around and sold the cure. It wasn't commerce, the Elder declares, it was straight-up parasitism.
Wow. Okay, let's just take a breath for a second. This whole story is targeting these big, abstract pillars of a society, right? But it kind of makes you think. It leads to a more personal question. What about the institutions we trust, the ones we rely on every single day?
And that thought brings us directly to the final set of charges. And these go even deeper. They target the most intimate structures of all, the things that define our sense of belief and belonging, religion and the family.
So, the Quasar judge takes on religion, and the accusation is intense. It wasn't used to free spirits, but to chain them. It preached humility while hoarding wealth. It told the suffering that their misery was somehow holy. It's this powerful indictment that divinity wasn't something to be experienced, it was something to be packaged and sold.
And then, in a really fascinating, almost unexpected twist, a being called the Cosmic Trickster examines the family unit itself. The charge here is that what was sold as love was often really about ownership and control. A place where kids were treated more like projects and where cycles of misery were just passed down, all under the guise of a sacred bond.
And with that, the prosecution rests. The indictments against knowledge, power, and faith just hang there, heavy in the cosmic silence. All that's left now is the verdict.
You can feel the tension as the Galactic Council stirs, ready to pass judgment on an entire world.
And the decision has been made.
The verdict is in guilty on all counts. The Council declares that every single institution in Asphaltalica was fundamentally corrupt. A liar, a thief, and a jailer. And here's the real kicker. Its chains weren't put there by some outside force. No, they were self-forged.
And the sentence is absolute. Total destruction. Asphalteca is to be stripped of its false crown and reduced to rubble, with its ruins serving as a stark, chilling warning to the entire cosmos.
But the story doesn't just end there, in total darkness. Because after the judgment, after all the destruction, something else begins to stir within the ruins.
You see, this wasn't just an execution, it was a cleansing. From the complete and total destruction of the old, a new light, a new dawn called Aurora begins to rise. It's that final glimmer of hope, that reminder that something better can always be built from the ashes.
So this whole cosmic story leaves us with a really powerful and maybe even an uncomfortable question. It forces us to look into that funhouse mirror described earlier and ask ourselves, if our own civilization were put on trial by the stars right now, what would the evidence show? What would be our final verdict?